Hi, I am Camille DePutter. I'm a freelance storyteller and I help people tell their stories for a living. And today I'm chatting with Molly Galbraith, co-founder and woman in charge at Girls Gone Strong and author of the new book, Strong Women Lift Each Other Up. I was Molly's writing partner on Strong Women Lift Each Other Up, and I'm super excited for its release. Welcome, Molly, and congratulations on the release of your new book.
Oh, Cam, thank you so much. As you know, this has been an incredibly long journey. Wild to think we're going on like 2.5 years from just the first kind of idea of, well, we could talk about how it started if you want, but from the idea of being a keynote speech all the way to a book. It's been a wild journey and it's been so fun taking it with you.
Oh, thank you. Same here. It's just been an amazing journey. And so, yeah, thought we could chat a little bit today because a lot of my newsletter readers, they have their own stories to tell. Some of them want to write books, and I thought we could just do a really simple chat to give people a little bit of behind the scenes about, what it's like to put a message like this, a book, an idea out into the world, and a little bit of the process behind it. So, a theme that I often explore in my newsletter is how to discover our stories, the stories that are most important to us, the stories that we absolutely have to tell. So, my first question to you is, how did you decide that Strong Women Lift Each Other Up was the message that you had to share with the world?
Yes, that's a great question. And I have a short answer and a long answer. And I told you the short answer the first time you asked me why I wanted to write it, because I said because I would shrivel up and die if I didn't, because it had to live outside my body. But essentially, it's like this idea got inside of me and it wouldn't leave me alone until it got out. So it wasn't fully, I don't feel like it was fully my decision, but that's the short answer was I felt like I had to. And the long answer is through the work we do at Girls Gone Strong, I'll give like a quick synopsis of that. We create evidence-based, interdisciplinary health, fitness, nutrition education for women and professionals who work with them. It's all women specific. And I've been in health and fitness for 17 years. I've been started Girls Gone Strong almost 10 years ago. And in the work that we were doing with women, helping them with their health, fitness, nutrition, pre and postnatal journey, we noticed two really powerful themes. And one was that women were struggling with comparison, jealousy, competition, feeling like other women are their competition, feeling like they don't measure up, they're not good enough, pretty enough, fit enough, lean enough, thin enough, they're not a good enough parent, they're not successful enough. The whole theme was I'm not enough and I don't measure up. And other women are better than me. I'm comparing myself to them. And I'm kind of stuck in this, there's not enough for me, scarcity mindset, comparison trap, which we delve into in the book. And then on the other hand, more women than ever are wanting to make a difference. They're wanting their life and their work to matter. They're wanting to have meaning and purpose, especially socio-politically. We've seen so many more women wanting to get involved in creating change over the last several years. But there's a couple things getting in their way. Number one, they don't know what to do. They see an atrocity on TV and they're like, I want to help, but I don't know how. Number two is they think that their impact, they can't make enough impact because they're just one person. And so it's like, well, what am I going to do? What's my $20 donation going to do? What's one conversation with a family member? How's that going to help? Right. And then number three, they either have been criticized or they're afraid of being criticized for what they're doing or what they're not doing. And so again, they're, maybe reading a book, trying to educate themselves on important topics. And someone's like, you're just reading a book. Like, what's that going to do? Right. And so it's like, oh, they kind of feel stuck or frozen. And so we've got women having all of these kind of struggles, right? And comparing, competing, feeling like they don't measure up. We have more women than ever wanting to create change. And the change that they're wanting to create is they're wanting to, there's at this point in time, there's a systemic lack of opportunity for women. There's 7% of Fortune 500 CEOs are women. 11% of women are heads of state globally. 3% of venture capital funding goes to companies, founded wholly by women. And so there's this lack of opportunity. And the only way to overcome that lack of opportunity is to work together to overcome it. But when we're so busy looking around, feeling like other women are our competition in these spaces where, women are already having such a hard time getting a spot, then we don't work together to create the change that needs to be created to create more opportunity for all of us. So it's kind of like this false kind of social construct, like, well, oh, well, there's only 2 spots out of 10 for women speaking at this event. And so it's like, well, if we believe that to be true, if we buy into that, then I'm less likely to recommend you to speak there, Cam, if I want to speak there, right? Because I think that, well, there's only 2 spots. And so I got to get one of those coveted spots, instead of saying, wait a second, why is there only 2 women to begin with? We either need equitable representation there, or we're going to go create our own thing and we're going to work together to do it. And so I felt like there's never been a better time to help women overcome their own struggles with body image struggles, comparison, jealousy, feeling like they're not good enough, feeling like other women are their competition. Teach them how to overcome those so that they can work together to create the kind of change that they want to create in the world.
Amazing. It takes me back to when we were starting this, and it was just like, oh my gosh, there's so much in here, in your head, in your body, and just this feeling of like, hey, I have all of these ideas and I know this really deeply, and a great desire to bring that out into the world and to share it with others, which is really what you've done here, and is so amazing. One thing I wanted to get into particularly, because so many of my readers are interested in, how do they share their own stories? And, this kind of wrestling with sometimes, does what I have to say even matter? Does my story and the way I want to tell it even matter? And so I was thinking about chapter 8, which is titled Your Voice Matters. And in that chapter, you explore how we can use our own voices and stories to lift others up. So there's tons in that chapter, but for now, do you have a tip maybe for readers who want to use their own stories to help others?
Yes, and I think you even touched on in the question itself, Cam. I think the number one tip that I have for women is to believe that their story matters and believe that they can make a difference for other people. And that's so much of what we talk about in chapter 8. It's women who start out sharing things about themselves that they never really thought anyone would care about to begin with, and the enormous amount of impact that they've been able to have. So we tell the story of a woman named Emily Ho, who started out many years ago, had a blog called Skinny Emmy, chronicling her weight loss. And eventually that felt inauthentic to her. And so then she started sharing, about her ADHD and about the death of her mom. And she started sharing clothing that she likes to wear. And so Emily started getting a lot of questions from women saying like, hey, how are you finding clothing in your sizes, in your size that fits you, that's affordable, that's stylish? And she's like, oh, it never even occurred to me that other women in larger bodies couldn't find cute, affordable clothing that they wanted to wear. So fast forward a decade, and now Emmy runs, she's got a blog, and then she has a social media business called Authentically Emmy, where she actually works with inclusive fashion brands to help get their message out to women in their community, which allows them to be more successful, which means they stay in the market longer, which means more women in larger bodies have access to clothing. And she's like, I never thought in a million years just sharing pictures of myself online in clothes that I felt cute in would, ripple into impacting all of these other women's lives who maybe, were struggling to find clothes that they felt good in, that, they had access to, that was affordable to them. So it's like this little thing. She just literally started posting pictures of herself and never had any clue that it would ripple into something that impacts so many other women in her community.
Yeah, I love that example. I love that you shared that just now too, because I think sometimes the idea is, well, the assumption is that your story then has to be a heavy story or dramatic or really out there and notable. And sometimes, that can be the case, but it can also be joyful or simple or just being ourselves. There's so many different ways to do this. And in the book you go into how you used your story and the experience of finding your voice, and there are other women's stories as well. But I love that you shared that just now. I think that is such a great takeaway, and certainly something that I always want to impress upon my readers, to just believe that your story matters. And when you connect to that and believe in that, then you can really do some great things. speaking of that, I know that a lot of my readers want to write a book at some point, or, maybe it's a dream they have or something they're working on or would like to get to. So I guess maybe I'd just love to hear a few words from you on the writing process. What was particularly challenging about it, and what was great or fun about it?
Oh, well, the finished product is really fun and great. Yeah, it was such an incredible process. And, we've done a lot of creating at Girls Gone Strong. You know this because you're a big part of a lot of the curriculum that we put out. And I think in terms of like creating our certifications and stuff, there was a really specific kind of framework. Like it makes sense to include coaching, psychology, anatomy and physiology, nutrition, exercise. But creating this book, it's like the possibilities are endless, right? Like it's like it was so interesting because like anything could have gone in there. And so I think it was the fun and challenging part was saying, okay, here's all the stuff that I want to talk about. And now let's figure out like, what are the themes? How does it go together? How does it build on itself? And so I think for people who were interested in writing a book, I think it's important to be passionate about what you want to write about. I think it's important to have a strong idea of what you want to write about. I think it's important to know you don't have to know every single thing that it's going to be and have it all planned out before you get started. One of the most helpful things that we ever did was just get all this kind of stuff out on paper and then take a step back and look at it and say, okay, how does this work? And we rewrote this thing like 3 different times from scratch. I remember at one point, my partner Casey was like, okay, if this were like a 30-day challenge, like what are the steps that someone would have to take to become a strong woman who lifts other women up? Like what would they do each day? And that was really helpful for me to step back and say, okay, yes, this makes so much sense. It has to build on itself in this way. And I've heard other authors say the same thing. Like I think Gretchen Rubin in her Happiness Project, she's like, yeah, now it seems real obvious that it's 100 days of happiness or whatever the thing is. She's like, but I had no idea what it was going to be at first. And so I think it's important for people to know it's okay to not know exactly what it's going to be. You just kind of have to have that, that fire in your belly to tell your story. And you have to have content to work with, but you don't have to have a perfectly, streamlined, elegant, like everything, knowing exactly how it's going to flow. And if you do have that, you're probably going to end up being disappointed or at some point when it gets all mishmashed back together and you end up overhauling it a couple different times.
Yeah, that's so great. I think that's wonderful advice. It really speaks to embracing the process and welcoming that messy process. And certainly, we had an outline that we started with and that we changed many times, including, even after the book proposal, we continued to learn about what the book actually looked like as we developed it. And yeah, it was definitely, there's a lot of hard work and late nights there, but I really always appreciated your commitment to that process and just continuing with it and being malleable until it took finally the shape that we really wanted it to take. And speaking of that too, so we've kind of mentioned a bit about our collaboration here, and one thing the readers might be interested in as well, or our viewers might be interested in, is why work with a writing partner or collaborator such as myself rather than just do it on your own? Because I think sometimes people wrestle with that as well. Should I work with someone on this, or should I just try to muscle through and do it on my own? Why did you decide to do that?
Yeah, so I believe deeply, and we talk about this in the book, that we are better together and that each of us brings our own unique skill set to the table and our own experiences and ideas. And so I think that, there's nothing that we do at Girls Gone Strong that isn't touched by 2, 3, 4 people. And working with you, Cam, I mean, you are so incredible. I always say that you help me sound like myself, but better. It's like, and it's funny because sometimes, well, the other thing is you give me confidence in my own ability to write. So like, I haven't always thought of myself as a writer. And sometimes I'll be like, hey, Cam, I don't know how to say this, but here's kind of what I want to say. And you're like, you could literally just say it exactly like that. And I'm like, oh, okay, I could just say it exactly like that. Or sometimes I'll look at a paragraph and I'll be like, man, Cam, you made this sound really good. And you're like, I didn't even touch it. And I'm like, oh, or you're like, or I added a the or a comma. And I'm like, oh, okay. So it was this combination of knowing and believing that we are better together. I mean, between my partner Casey came in, he helped a little bit kind of in the beginning, and then he came in at the end and just really helped us polish it. Because one of his superpowers is to take any project and just like crank the nozzle on it, like anything, he can make it just 10 to 20% better at the end. But I kept remembering the sections that he and I would work on, and you and I would work on, and sometimes even you and him would work on stuff. Like, he and I would produce something and we would hand it to you and you would make it better. And then you and I would work on something and we would share it with him and he would make it better. And then the two of you would talk about something and then I would come in and make it better. And it was just so apparent that the what is it? The sum of our parts was greater than the whole. I can't remember what that synergy phrase is, but basically that when we worked together, we were so much greater than the sum of our parts. It was such a synergistic effect. So it was a combination of things. It was believing that we're better together and knowing we could do better work. It was, you as a person, we chose to work with you because you're so incredible and so talented, and you take everything that we do and make it better. And you gave me a lot of confidence in my own abilities to say, like, okay, I might not think of myself as a writer going into this, but helping me see and understand that I actually do have talent and skill in that area, and teaching me to kind of trust my own gut and intuition when it comes to my writing.
Amazing. Thank you so much for all of that. And it really was such a beautiful process, really hard sometimes and messy, but that back and forth and collaborative nature of it is so rewarding in the end. And also especially seeing you develop that confidence too, and coming more and more into your own and really kind of build that muscle is so awesome to see. And thing that I really want to impart to others as well too. I think so much of the time with writing, we're concentrating on the sort of tactical piece of it, the refinement, and to know that that self-expression is something really that we can all do in different forms. And we might not be great at all parts of it, and that's where that collaboration and support can come in. But to really continue to build that confidence in your own expression of ideas and ability to bring it out into the world.
Well, and I'll say you also just ask such good questions too, so I'd be like working on a piece or a chapter and you would just ask such powerful questions that would pull really valuable information out of me at times too, or just help kind of reorganize the information in a way that makes more sense, or say, hey, like, how can we take this and turn it into more of like a framework or whatever the thing was. So you really just did such a great job of taking the stuff that was living inside of me and helping it make a lot more sense and helping it flow. And yeah, it was just in making it even more transformative than it would have been without you. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Molly. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. And yeah, I really feel like a lot of times this process too is about figuring out what you really want to say. It's, you might have kind of some ideas, but really refining it, really clarifying it. And so much of Girls Gone Strong material in any form is always really actionable. And I know you really wanted to make this book super practical, super actionable. And so really, that also required us to really think like, okay, well then how do you act on this? What do you do? And was really fun for me as well to work with you on that and imagining, okay, well, what would the prompts be? What would, worksheets on this be? So there's so much great material in there as well. So any final words? I was going to ask you if you have any advice for people who want to write a book. I think you might have answered that already, but any other final words or pieces of advice?
Yeah, I think that believing that what you have to say matters is really important. I think pushing for what you believe in is really important. We ended up working with a publisher, with Harper Horizon, on this project, and they were our partners, and it truly was a partnership with them as well. But there was a lot of like, hey, no, we need a little more time with this. We're going to push to make this better. Hey, no, we really think it's important that it's, two color on the inside, because that's going to make it more transformative. That's going to make, keep it more interesting or whatever. Hey, no, that iteration of the book cover isn't going to work. It needs to look like this. We just really kept pushing for what we believed in to make it as good as we possibly could, because we believe that remarkability is going to allow it to get in the hands of more people. So I would say believe that you have something important to say, be okay with knowing that you don't have to know exactly what it is at the at the beginning. If you want to do something, working with a writing partner like you is an incredibly valuable step to take, and will not only help you tell a better story, but also improve your confidence in yourself, and fight for what you believe in and push to make your project as good as it can possibly be. And you will end up just feeling so proud. Like, it's every time I reread the book, I'm just so proud of what we've created, which is such a good feeling, because there were many long nights, many yelling, not so much between you and I, but there was some, yelling and fights between Casey and me. But there were tensions and times that we pushed back against each other and said, like, hey, no, I'm going to fight for this thing because I really believe in it. And, the kind of pushback and the tension back and forth between us working on it. So yeah, I know I just gave a lot of different things to say, but I would give all of that advice to someone who wants to write a book, but most of all, believe that your voice matters and that you have something important to say that can impact people.
Wonderful. Love it. Thank you so much. Couldn't say it better myself. Thank you so much for chatting with me today, Molly. Where can people find you and your book?
Yes, they can go to mollygalbraith.com. So MOLLYGALBRAITH.com/book. And it's in all the major retailers. So they can also just do a quick Google search for Strong Women Lift Each Other Up. It's available in the US, Canada, UK, Germany, Australia, and New Zealand right now. And hopefully it'll be available in even more places soon. And then you can find me at the Molly Galbraith on Instagram. And if you're looking for Girls Gone Strong related resources, our website, girlsgonestrong.com, is the best place to find all of that.
Fabulous. Thank you. And friends, don't forget to sign up for the Storytelling with Heart newsletter as well. And you can learn more and sign up there at CamilleDePutter.com. Thank you for watching. Thanks, Molly.
Thanks.